Hi, everybody.
Hello, and welcome back to the Bariatric Beauties. I believe that we are now in episode 6, which I can't believe it's been 6 weeks already. Can you believe it's been 6 weeks?
I know. Let me quickly do the intro.
All right, we're going to do the intro.
Have you ever wanted to know everything about weight loss surgery? Well, your wish has been granted. Introducing the Bariatric Beauties, hosted by me, Sherry.
And me, Victoria. Tune in now for tons of great content every Wednesday, 7 p.m. London time.
And 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
You won't want to miss a thing.
Disclaimer, Victoria and I are not medical professionals. We are just two chicks talking about bariatrics based on our journeys. Welcome back.
That was good, wasn't it?
That was a really good one. So thank you guys so much for tuning in right now. And just to recap, last week we talked about body dysmorphia, and Victoria and I had kind of given some tips and solutions on what we thought might help. But today, in the words of Ed Sullivan, and I know I just dated myself right now, but we have a really big show. So we have Kelly Taylor, who is a psychologist in New Jersey, and we wanted to invite her on and have her answer some of our questions, answer some of your questions. And like we said, Victoria and I are not professionals, but Kelly is. So we wanted to kind of pick her brain a little bit as far as the surgery and the psychology part of it, prepping for the surgery and all that stuff. So we're going to welcome Kelly to the show. Kelly, welcome.
Kelly.
Hello.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Sherry. Hi, Victoria.
Hello. So I just wanted to tell a quick little backstory on how I met Kelly. It was about 2 years ago when I wrote my book, Unzipped, shameless plug. I was reaching out to bariatric professionals because I thought maybe it would be a good tool for, future patients to kind of be able to prepare for it. And so Kelly was this woman that I just happened to come across on LinkedIn, and she was a bariatric psychologist. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna hit her up. And she was kind enough. She said, why don't you send me a copy of your book? We have a Christmas event coming up and I can use it as a raffle. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And so I sent off the book. And then I didn't hear anything for a while. No, which was fine because it was cool. And about a couple months later, some woman messaged me out of the blue and she said, hey, I won your book in a raffle and I just finished reading it and I absolutely loved it. And we started chatting and I was like, oh my God, I think that was from that woman, Kelly, that I messaged. And then nothing ever happened. The pandemic happened. Life got crazy. And about, I don't know, it was maybe 4 or 5 months ago, Kelly found me on LinkedIn again. And she said, hey, I remembered that we had met a while back and I'm putting together a support group. Would you like to be a part of it and maybe share a little bit about your journey? And it's been like a couple of months and now I feel like she's becoming like a friend and we're getting to know each other. And I just think between the three of us now, there's a lot of exciting opportunities coming up on how we can really help people on a bigger scale. So like we were talking earlier, everything happens for a reason. So Kelly, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure. Thanks for having me. And Sherry, all that time is just because I was really terrible at using LinkedIn. And it was lucky that we even connected in the first place. I finally figured out my sign-in information years later. And so I'm glad we figured that out.
And here we are.
It's been a good connection.
Yeah.
Definitely less connection. So
Melissa was saying she's part of that group.
I was part of. Oh yeah. Well, hello, Melissa. Welcome aboard. So we have so many questions and we're pretty sure we're not going to get to everything today. So depending on how this goes, if you guys want to have Kelly back, we're going to beg and plead that maybe she'll be willing to come back. But we want to get through as many of your questions and our questions as possible. So Kelly, welcome to the hot seat.
Upbeat.
Here we go. Victoria, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, so let's go for the top one that I wanted to ask. I'm bipolar, and so I want to know how that affects, obviously, the pre-evaluation, how you would want to go forward with me with bipolar and the surgery.
Okay. So, of course, in the pre-op evaluation, I ask about mental health history. So if I know that somebody is diagnosed with bipolar or is having bipolar symptoms, I want to know about the history. How long has someone been dealing with those symptoms? How have they been managing them? I like to hear that people have had therapy and that they've had some professional help to work on their symptoms. So I want to see the consistency in that. Did they stick with their treatment? And also medication management. So
Yeah.
virtually, most of the time, all the time, people with bipolar disorder, medications are going to be very helpful. So
But
I
you're
like to
quite
see that.
happy. That wouldn't stop any sort of like going forward. It would literally be, it wouldn't stop going forward. It would, you'd just literally evaluate it and then hope that, or speak to like my own psychologist that I am sort of looking after it.
Yeah, because I believe that weight loss surgery can help you like it can help anyone else. And I also see, there's really a mind body connection. So the healthier your body is, the healthier your mind can be. So
Mm,
I'd be happy for someone with bipolar disorder to be able to have weight loss surgery. But I just want to make sure that, especially like I said, if there's a history of being compliant with treatment, sticking with it, being med
hmm.
compliant. So I know that there's going to be some stability afterwards
Yeah,
because as we know, surgery can be a roller coaster of emotions before and afterwards,
yeah,
which you already
yeah.
can experience emotional roller coasters. So we don't want to make that worse for you. So,
I was saying I was saying my roller coaster was, I was brilliant with the with keeping my bipolar under wraps. So I was good with it. The medications were fine. I took it all the time. Basically, if the doctor said jump, I'd say how high. But afterwards, oh dear, because of the stomach and how it changes, the medication completely different. And for
yeah.
2 to 3 weeks, I was like, woohoo! And my husband was like, I think you need to go back and see why these tablets aren't working. So that's
Yeah.
what I did. But yeah, immediately went back and said, hello, I need help. And they,
Yeah. This
sorted it.
definitely something that I'll, kind of strongly recommend is that people follow up closely with their either whether it's a psychiatrist or their primary care
Yeah.
physician who is prescribing that medication, because your stomach is smaller, things are going to absorb differently, so
Yeah.
and then your weight's going to be changing, so
Mm.
it's good to
Oh,
follow
yeah.
up, yeah, with them more closely after surgery than you were maybe
Mhm.
previously.
Yeah, yeah. So I did all
Awesome.
that. That was good.
Yeah.
All right, so I
But
have
yeah,
a
it does
question.
change all the way through.
I have a question. So, how did you get into psychology and bariatrics? Was it something that you've always wanted to do? Was it something that was like an unexpected surprise? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, well, it was sort of, not really a straight path, but my undergraduate degree was in physical education studies. My original goal was to be a gym teacher. I thought that'd be a lot of fun.
Oh,
So, as I went through my career, I took a couple sports psychology classes, and I thought they were really interesting. So, after college, I pursued a master's degree in sports psychology. So, my program was actually an exercise and sport science program with a specialization in sports psychology. So I enjoyed sports psychology, but I also really liked how, it could have a broader application. These things can be applied to any population, really. Um, so I guess I started working, and then shortly after that, I decided to go back to school again. And this time I went for clinical psychology. With my background in being interested in wellness, I've got a history of nutrition. It was a good combination for me. But the way I actually got into it was just being in the right place at the right time, where I crossed paths with a bariatric surgeon, and we just struck up a conversation. And they happened to be opening another office. So he said, if you want to, kind of learn about the practice, learn what these patients go through, we can give you some referrals for those pre-op evaluations. So it took me a little bit of time to transition into that from where I was working. I was working at a community center. So I took some time to listen in on some nutrition classes, meet some of the surgeons, talk to some of the patients, and get familiar with what this was all about. Because honestly, before that, I didn't even know it existed. Not weight loss surgery, but that there was the psychological aspect of it where these evaluations were required. So, it was just really cool that I fell into
That's
it. And then
awesome.
eventually, because we know it's a busy business, it in time just became a full-time thing. And now here I am, maybe 12 years later.
Talking to us.
Like,
Yeah.
I love it. And
No,
then
that's awesome.
and it's so funny. So Victoria and I were joking because I know it's not your fault, but and I don't know about everyone who's watching right now, but like when you're going through this process and you have to do the psychological evaluation, this person who does not know you, you feel is going to be the deciding factor as to whether or not you can have this surgery. And you feel like there's all of this anxiety. What if I say the
Yeah.
wrong thing? What if I do the
Yeah.
wrong thing? What if I say something that gets me denied? It's almost like being on this blind date,
Yes.
not knowing like how to act, how to react. Like you're so overly cautious. And that's from our point of view. So I'm curious, like, what the process is like from your point of view when you see these people who are probably like, wah!
Well, it's funny because, I see a wide range of people. So there are some people that come in and they do have that anxiety and they're nervous. They say, oh my gosh, I just don't want to fail. And they'll come in and they'll say it right off the bat.
Yeah.
And then there are some people where, we're doing telehealth and they're just sitting in their bed and they, they're like, all right, this is cool. So they're all different people, that have different approaches when they come in. But I do let them know that it's not a pass fail thing. We're here to have a conversation. I am doing an evaluation, but we're going to talk about what's going to be. I do help try to give some preparation, some advice, but also do the evaluation, get the information I need to in the meantime. And then we come up with a good plan going forward. So I try to ease people's minds when they come in with that anxiety.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, so, Melissa was saying she met you via telehealth.
Yeah. Yep.
That's Melissa.
And I know Melissa's doing great. So I'm really happy to see her progress and that she's kept in touch with us periodically.
Yeah.
Since then. Yeah.
And she said it's a very emotional experience.
Oh, yeah.
During the appointment or like just in general. We'll see if she gets back. But Victoria has another question.
Well, yeah. So I was just sort of saying, what would you like to see when you're evaluating people for success? Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Well, one thing I do like to see is that I do like to see that people have made some previous weight loss attempts, because then it just shows me that they're aware that they need to make changes, that they've tried, they are able to put forth some effort. Sometimes people haven't, and they've got their other reasons for being there. So it doesn't mean that if you haven't tried anything previously, you're not going to be able to get the surgery. But it's nice to see that people have made an effort. And also, I like when people are kind of aware of what types of changes they're going to have to make, and they tell me about the ways they're going to do it. I know I need to overcome this, so these are some of the ways I'm going to try to do it. Or they've made some changes in their support network, or I like when they tell me different things that they've started to do, because we know this is a lifestyle change. And a lifestyle change isn't going to happen the day you have your surgery. So it's nice that I see people having a good idea of what they need to do and starting to do those things. And a lot of times it's helpful when people have family members or friends who have had the surgery, so they kind of see what it's about. So I just like to see that people have an idea of what's going to happen down the road and have started to make adjustments to their lifestyle.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then going along with that, because like Victoria and I will joke, I had my surgery like 7.5 years ago now. And at the time, I literally was left with a diet plan on what to follow. And then that was it. You had a couple follow-up appointments in the beginning, and then it's like once a year. And then like you're basically a lamb to the wolf to like kind of figure it out. Now I know we've grown leaps and bounds in the community, and there's all of these support groups and like stuff like that. But back then I didn't have that, which is why I'm glad to be meeting people today and tell them like there's so many resources out there. So I know that your sole purpose is to give them an evaluation, But do you kind of give them any tips or like things to help them after the process to either mentally prepare for the changes that might come, or how does that work?
I try to, especially, I guess, since I've been doing it for a while and I know what happens afterwards, I do try to squeeze that into my evaluations, even though, I'm sort of looking at the information I need to get. So I have to stay on a time schedule to be able to get that information so I can put together a report and get it turned in so they can go forward with the surgery. But I know there's more to it. And that's why I've been revamping what I'm doing a little bit recently, because for a while I found myself just doing a lot of these pre-op evaluations and trying to follow up with some people afterwards, giving them the opportunity to follow up, but it wasn't happening regularly. So I started some emotional eating groups to help people either before or after surgery. And we haven't started this yet, but I do want to start up a mental preparation, either a group or a class, a meeting or two where we can spend some extra time before the surgery talking about those emotional and mental changes, challenges that can happen, because it's hard to squeeze it all in one appointment. And as most people know, there are a lot of other pre-op appointments that people have to do. So it's a lot. It can be overwhelming. So to add another thing in that's mandatory is hard to do, but at least they can offer it as an optional service. Yeah.
Which, and I love that, because I can't tell you how many times within the first year I was Googling everything because I thought I was the only one. And I'll never forget, there was a time when I started getting lightheaded really easily. And it wasn't like getting up too fast. Sometimes I was just walking. And I almost had, there was one instance, I almost had like this seizure-like moment where my body convulsed while my husband was taking a shower, and I'm Googling it. I'm talking to WebMD, or like I'm Googling my symptoms, and I always end up with cancer. I always have some rare disease.
Yeah, it's true.
So I've now been banned from Googling my symptoms. So everyone is okay. I now
probably a good idea.
Probably a good idea. But I was so concerned because I was like, what is happening? And then I found out after the fact that because I had higher blood pressure, that with all the significant weight loss, your blood pressure is stabilizing, and it kind of takes a little while for your body to catch up to the changes. And I'm like, that's such a simple explanation, but I thought I was going to die. Like I didn't know what was happening. So I am so excited that even though it's in development right now and it's not out yet, that you're putting something together to say, hey, here's some things that may or may not happen. They're completely normal. This is how you navigate through it. These are some, because they did not tell me I knew hair loss was a potential issue. I didn't know how bad it was going to be. So there were so many things that when they were happening, I thought I was like this lone wolf, that no one else experienced this, until years later when you're talking to people, you're like, oh, that happened to me too. Okay, apparently that's normal. And you're
I mean, didn't you say, Kelly, that the things that they come into you with is hair loss? They're not thinking of any physical attitudes. They're sort of thinking like hair loss, the skin.
Yeah, so then I always ask people, do you have any questions or concerns? And those are, usually the things that people ask. And not that there isn't a mental emotional component to that. Sure, it can hurt people to lose some hair. It can hurt their self-esteem. It can hurt their ego. And then to lose skin, how do you deal with that? So it's not that there isn't a mental component to that. But I think there's a lot more that people don't even know to ask beforehand. So that's why I think
that's it. They actually don't know what to ask. Yeah. They haven't researched it, or they don't know what they're going in for. Like what we said earlier, they're scared to do, and they don't know what to ask. So therefore, the only thing they can think of is the sort of, the hair and the body and the skin, etc. Another thing I want to ask is, sorry.
Just what's been happening over time is that there's so much, so many more groups out there, the support groups, Facebook groups, Instagram. It used to be YouTube, now it's TikTok. So the way this social media and technology has evolved over time has given people more opportunity to hear other people's stories, listen to blogs, ask certain questions. So there's a lot more opportunity to learn this information than there was years ago. But still, you've got to pick through it and find the good information.
sorry, Kate, from that, do you then think that they are looking maybe they're looking through the groups and then they're getting the horror stories, so then they're coming into you with that sort of like fear of it all and the horror stories, they come in like that as well?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's what I was saying. You've got to pick through those things and find the good information and the not so good information. And
Yeah.
like you were saying, at the end, you had this, sort of general diet plan to follow. So there are some surgical practices that prepare their patients a lot more thoroughly than others. So a lot of times those horror stories may come from people that said, oh, I didn't know I had to do that.
Yeah.
I wasn't given that information. So you got to take it all with a grain of salt.
Yeah. Okay.
But
And
I
the other
definitely hear
question
people
is
get nervous
like,
about those horror stories.
other questions that I get asked all the time then on that note, is there any way that they could fail the evaluation? That gets asked all the time.
Yes. And I get that question too, because a lot of people think it's pass fail. And what I tell people is it's really not a pass fail thing. What I'm doing is an evaluation. This evaluation is required by patients' insurance companies. So I guess the insurance companies want to make sure there are no red flags that are going to make this person not a suitable candidate to have this type of surgery. So I write a report based on the information I get, and then I submit it, and then everything is reviewed all together. And then the insurance company or the surgical practice will make a decision. But what I do is, if I do find some people who have some red flags to me would be some symptoms like depression, anxiety, maybe bipolar disorder that are not being managed, and that may be contributing to people's eating habits. They have some emotional eating and they don't have any other coping skills. So those kinds of things, I would have a conversation with the person about and come up with a plan for, if you're not having any treatment for these symptoms right now, let's find out how you can get some help to work on these things before surgery. There have been some times where people agreed and said, yeah, I don't think this is the right time for me because I don't have a handle on these things. So we say, okay, so why don't you go get some help with this? And then when you feel like you're ready, give me a call back and we'll do it again. So we come up with a plan. It's not like I'm not going to say to someone, you can't have the surgery, you're going to fail this. See you later.
But there must be some sort of like, there must be some sort of obviously structure that you do that is like, do you ask a certain amount of structures that is like, 80%, 30%, 20%, 10%, and that percentage is, whether it's, whether it's a good candidate?
So I just go through, like I said, it's an evaluation. So I have sort of a structured interview. I ask people the same questions, and then based on their answers, we may go a little more in depth in one area versus another. But again, it's just making sure that those mental health symptoms there's a plan to get them under control. So it's not, I don't want it to be harder for people after the surgery. Or I don't want people to be surprised that afterwards they still have depression and anxiety that's now getting worse because they weren't addressing it.
Yeah, cool.
So going along that line, so you've been doing this a long time now. So you've had probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people come through your door preparing for bariatric surgery. I'm curious if there's ever any like recurring themes that you see that are constantly kind of brought up, whether it's the potential patient's like future worries or concerns. I'm just curious if there's like a recurring theme with people in the community as to what their concerns are going into it.
Yeah, I guess there are a couple of them, but the biggest thing, I guess, or people either come back for is the emotional eating. People are, the way I say it is, people are using food the wrong way. So we talk about, what's underneath these eating habits. And after the surgery, you're looking at food as fuel. That's the main purpose. Not that you can't enjoy food or, have food in a social situation, but a lot of people are just stuck on that emotional eating, and eventually they might gravitate back towards old habits. So I guess it's just, how do I navigate this?
That was another question about the emotional eating. Like, how do they control their emotional eating, or what would you suggest for their emotional eating? How would you prepare them or suggest, help for them?
Yeah. So one is participate in an emotional eating group or to work individually with a therapist, or a couple things. If we just have to kind of cover it in a quick conversation, I'll let people know that it's important to start thinking about their patterns. When do they typically do that emotional eating? Is it happening? Is it happening every night because that's when people are bored? Or is it happening because people are frustrated or have a lot of stress in their lives, and they come home from work or come home from school, and that's what they do to release some of that stress. So we talk about, okay, so start identifying those patterns. And think about replacing that with something else. So either adding some healthier habits, using distraction, because some people just get hung up on food. Food is the answer, and then get hung up on that. So it's good to come up with some distractions for that, to avoid the environment, because we know we've got certain, come home, first thing you do is go into the kitchen, is maybe adjust your routines so that you're not continuing in that same routine, same pattern every day. So it's changing your daily routine.
That makes sense.
And then see what happens. So sometimes I'll ask people, why don't you start making some of these changes, and then we'll talk again in a couple of weeks. And if you were able to make some progress, that's great. If not, if you're still stuck in this emotional eating, then there's a little more work, a little deeper work that has to be done.
And you have a group. Do you have a group for that? Do you have a group for that? You do, don't you? Okay. So what's the group called? So we know where to put them.
I just call it an emotional eating group. And what we've been doing is a 4-week group where we do 1 hour. It's virtual, 1 hour a week for 4 weeks. And we have a structure. We talk about the development of eating habits. We talk about food addiction. We talk about different thought patterns that keep people stuck in those emotional eating habits, and how to replace it. What are some better alternatives? And that's what we do during those 4 weeks.
Later on, we could give the link then.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll put the link in for them. Yeah. Okay. So Sherry, what were you going to ask? Sorry, darling, before I rudely interrupted.
I don't know. I was just so listening intently, but I do have a question. Because Victoria and I have talked about it briefly. We haven't done a full show on it, and I think we would like to, hopefully in the near future. I didn't know how common transfer addiction is. Post bariatric surgery.
We both wanted to know about this one.
Yeah, so I guess, and that's a topic, a complete beast in itself. But I was just curious, from your point of view, how common do you see?
Because I had it. That's why we're asking, isn't it? Because I had transfer addiction to alcohol.
Yeah, to be very honest with you, is I don't see it often. I do get a handful of people who come in with a history, because I do ask about history of addiction. So people who are most vulnerable to transfer addictions are people who have either a history. It could be a history of addiction to alcohol, to other drugs. It could be gambling. It could be shopping. It could be any type of addiction. So I find out about that history. Or even if there's a family history of addiction, people can be more vulnerable to it. Or, again, just people with other maybe more severe symptoms, again, that haven't been managed or are out of control. And that lack of coping, people are grasping at anything that will help them cope. So they could resort to something that is harmful.
Yes.
So, So again, I look at the history and look at what types of treatment they've had. How comfortable and confident they are in the recovery, if they are in recovery. And then again, what's the relapse plan? So is it, what happens? So now that you're not able to emotionally eat anymore, we want to make sure that they're not turning towards other harmful substances that they may have done before, or even choose something different.
Yeah. I mean, I was not lucky. I was strong-willed, and I went to rehab because I knew it had got to a stage where I needed rehab. And that actually taught me not only about the alcohol, but about food as well, how to control the food. And if I want something, then think about it. We were talking about this, weren't we, Sherry, the other day? Think about it. And Sherry was telling me, think about it. What would you prefer? To lose that pound or to have that packet of crisps? So we were talking about that, and so my alcohol rehab actually taught me quite a lot about food as well. But I was very strong-willed to get there.
Yeah, it's really similar because I have worked with people with addiction here and there throughout my career, and it's really just the more and more I do this, the more and more
Mm,
similar it seems.
yeah,
It's something that's giving you some type of a benefit. It's stimulating your brain in a certain
yeah,
way, and then it's backfiring.
yeah,
But you keep coming back and doing it again. It's really a
yeah,
similar.
And I think it's so hard too, because when you struggle with obesity or any kind of an addiction, whether it's a food addiction or drugs, you're using this tangible thing to replace some kind of a human or emotional response or something like that.
yeah,
So when you are using food as a coping mechanism to deal with stress or sadness or celebrations or whatever, and then you have this surgery and then you can't use that anymore. That's why I think it's common that people will transfer to something else, a soda, a cigarette, alcohol,
yeah,
drugs,
yeah,
whatnot. And I try to tell people the best advice I can give is there is a reason that you were using these coping mechanisms through these vices that you had. But
mm,
until you can have the surgery 400 times over, but
yeah,
unless you get to the root of what's causing those emotional responses, whether it was something when you were younger or the way that you deal with
mm,
stress, you're going to have the same problem continue on for the rest of your life in different forms or different variations. And
mm,
that was a big thing for me. Is Victoria and I had talked about it in one of the earlier shows when we were kind of telling a little bit about our backstories. Is for me personally, I was a people pleaser. I thought that I
yeah.
needed to
We
win over
both were, weren't we? We were both saying we both were
we were
people
the same way,
pleasers.
and that we had to
Yeah,
give so much of ourselves in order
mm,
to get love and affection and stuff like that. And
mm,
over time it starts harming you and it harms your own psyche. And I knew that. And then when people didn't give you the same energy that you expelled out, it would make you feel bad. You might start eating and like all of these things. So for me it was like when I started losing the weight from the surgery, my biggest fear was having the old habits creep in, and history was going to keep repeating itself. So I had to go back and I had to kind of pinpoint certain moments, or whether it was cutting out toxic people in your life or finding ways to redirect how you handle stress and stuff like that. But I just think it's so common that it's so important. If you haven't found a reason on how to handle your addictions, your emotional eating,
absolutely.
your food,
You need that. You need that one thing.
you do. You need to talk to a professional or somebody who's more who knows more of the psychology behind
Mm,
why we do it. Pull back the onion layers a little bit and kind of delve into it and figure it out so that you can truly heal.
you
Because
do.
you can lose 2, 3, 400 pounds, but unless you're gonna learn how to make those changes from within you,
Mine was self-assurance. Every time we went back and there was a picture or there was something, it was self-assurance. So I knew that if I lost my weight again and I'd go back to how I was before, which was slim, then I knew that it's a self-assurance thing. And it's true because as I've lost weight and more loss and more loss and more loss, my self-assurance has got better and better and better, and the confidence has got better and better and better. And I just continually keep taking photos of myself and just going, look, this is how different I look from then. I feel good, I feel better. So mine was self-assurance all the way because I didn't have that as a child. So
Yeah.
it's come with me.
And I'm sure that you've strengthened that with some of the changes that you've made in your life, not simply the surgery, things that you've
No, it's
done to
everything.
make it all work.
Yeah. I had to do everything. I had to change everything mentally as well with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love when people give a shout out to their surgeons, and I know a lot of the surgeons and they're great and people are thankful to their surgeons, but I also want to say, but you're doing all the work. You're doing all the work to make these changes. So, as much as people are making as things, people might struggle with things, as much as people are making these good changes, I want them to also give themselves credit for
right?
doing all of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and what's so funny is you're totally right. How often do we like, oh my God, my surgeon saved my
Yeah,
life?
you do.
And I don't know what happened, like if it's an energy thing, but as you were saying that, I just got this image of like the relay race in the Olympics. And I feel like your
Really?
surgeon is
Oh.
holding the torch or whatever, and he literally just passes it to you, but it's your responsibility to take it the rest of the way
Yeah.
because you're not going to win the race just with what he did. You got to carry your weight, I guess, literally and figuratively.
Oh my God, your mind is just wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. That's really cool. That just
I
like
like that.
came out of your head.
I think of it all the time when I see that. And again, like I said, it's great. Surgeons are great. But if you don't if you're still doing things the way you were before the surgery, the changes aren't going to, you're not going to maintain those changes.
No way.
Yeah.
It's I had never thought of surgery as an option for a long time. And people who know my story, in the beginning, 10, 15 years ago, I thought it was cheating. I said, you know, all these things. And I knew somebody who had the surgery, and I met her around the time that she had it. And for the first year, she threw up almost every day. And I'm like watching back going, who would have a surgery and they're throwing up every single day? I do not like throwing up. This is probably why I'm not much of a drinker, because I go from 0 to passed out or, you know, throwing up. I hate that feeling so much. Who would go through this trouble to do that? And so years later, when I had the surgery and I was looking at the diet and I was following everything to a T, I looked back to that person, and that person was eating fried calamari, a month out. They were drinking alcohol. They were doing all of these things. And I was like, that's why she was always sick. And she lost a lot of weight, which good for you. That's amazing. But those are the kind of the small cases that they never looked at it as the long haul. Maybe it was a vanity thing. I don't know what the reasoning was, but they never changed anything. They just consumed less of these vices and stuff like that. And
I've seen a lot of TikTok videos, and they've just come out of surgery and they've just gone to Subway. And they said, oh, this is what you can get out of Subway. Sorry, I've just advertised Subway. But so they're going, this is what you can get out of Subway. I never thought about that when I came out of surgery. I was like, where's the lettuce?
Yeah.
Where's the lettuce? And the vegetables and the protein. I never thought of do you know what I mean? So when
they say that's the definition of crazy is continuing to do the same thing and expecting a different outcome.
Yeah.
You can't. If you want to change, you got to make a change.
Yeah.
Those things weren't working before.
Yeah, that's just crazy. So one of the things that we talk about a lot, and whether it's in different support groups, is people can't differentiate between being hungry or thinking they're hungry or thinking they're craving something. I know head hunger is a really big thing. And I said, I'm not a doctor. I've learned that sometimes, and maybe I'm wrong, but oftentimes when we feel hungry, we're actually a little dehydrated. So sometimes they say just drink some more water and the kind of craving goes away. But from your point of view, is there any tips or advice that you can give to somebody who is struggling constantly with head hunger? And I've seen in some support groups, even recently, they're like, I thought this was going to go away. I thought I was going to have the surgery and I wasn't going to crave anything and I wasn't going to feel hungry, and I'm hungry all the time. And I don't know how to, I want to be able to help them, but I don't know the answer for that.
Yeah.
And I would say it's one of the most difficult things. I think it's one of the most challenging things people have to deal with. And it is one of those things that I hear more of, again, with along with the emotional eating is that head hunger. So they do remove the hunger hormone, that ghrelin that's in there. So everybody's got a different level of that real appetite reduction. But when it's in your head, it's something that usually you're craving a specific food. It comes on pretty quickly. You've done the other things, like you've had some water, you've waited a little bit of time, and you still feel that or experience that in your head. And think about it, it's pretty normal, because again, for a long time in people's lives, that's what they did, was they had food, thought about food, prepared food, consumed food. So now it's not there. So how do you fill your time? So I think part of it is, again, that distraction. So when you notice you're really getting stuck in that head hunger, is to have something else to do. I encourage people to pick up a hobby. Maybe there's something that you've always wanted to do, and now use this time to do that. Or
because I know somebody said to me, I just want to stop. Very good friend of ours on the group, and she said, I just want to stop thinking about food for 24 hours. What do I do? How do I do that? And it is distraction.
So part of it is distraction. And then, another thing is sort of that we talked about that, just sitting with it. So sometimes if you have that head hunger, I encourage people, just go sit down somewhere nice and quiet and peaceful and say, okay, I'm feeling hungry, or I'm thinking hungry. And what happens is it's an uncomfortable thought to have. And as humans, we don't want to be uncomfortable. We don't want to feel hungry. We don't want to be thinking about food. So the easy thing to do is grab some food and then it will go away. But we know that's not the right thing to do. So I'll encourage people, just sit down and say, okay, I'm feeling hungry. This is what I'm thinking about. But it doesn't mean I need to grab the food. And see how long you can sit there with it. And chances are eventually it will pass. Maybe not this time, maybe not. It might be difficult. It's going to be difficult for a little while. I can't say there's any magic solution where, okay, do this and then it's going to be easy. It's going to take some work. But the more people make a better choice and don't choose food, either sit with it and say, okay, I'm hungry, but I don't have to eat. Or I'm thinking about food, but instead I'm going to go for a walk. Or instead, I'm going to go read that book. Or instead, I'm going to call a friend. Everybody's going to find something that's going to work for them. The more you make the healthy choice, you're going to reinforce that behavior. The more you choose the food, the more you're going to reinforce that behavior. And we know that when you make the right choice, you can feel really good about it. And that can give you that reward in itself, is feeling successful. I did it. I didn't let it control me.
Yeah, that's what Tori and I were saying. It's that empowerment and that strength and the, I've done that.
Yeah, and part of this is not letting food control you anymore, because when it's constantly invading your brain, it's almost like it's controlling you and forcing you to make certain behaviors. But if you can have more control over your own brain and then your own behaviors, you'll feel better about it. Exactly. It just takes some time.
And I think that's so true too. And I think, people could be watching this, be like, yeah, easier said than done, or yeah, on paper that sounds great, but just like anything else, the first couple times you do it, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be tough. But like everybody who's
just got to try it. I think you just got to try it, haven't you?
You just got to try it once or twice and see how you feel.
I had to do it.
Yeah.
Like I had to just sit with it, like you said, Kelly. I just had to sit with like the alcohol side of it, and then I had to do that with food. Just sit with it, resonate it, and just sort of, get through, and then just move on. Right, okay, I've done that now. Right, okay. So what
and that's where you want to have a plan to move on. I think it's good for everybody to have a plan to move on. So that's why I said, know what it is you like to do and have a plan to do that, or whether it's that certain person that you call. Because the more we have things that are, when we're under feelings of stress, we tend to go to what's familiar, and in the past it's been food. So you've got to make something else familiar to you. So that's your default. That's your go-to.
Yeah. Like you say, like a phone call to a friend you've just hiss on. Yeah.
But you've got to have that plan. Even if you, and here's another thing that might sound silly, but even if you make a little list, like a little emergency card of, if I'm in this situation, these are the things I'm going to do. So it sort of takes the thinking out of it. It's just, okay, I'm going to go to my list, and then you go on autopilot. I'm going to do these things.
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's just swayed your mind though, hasn't it? I'm going to go to my list.
Yeah.
It's even that small thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And just like Victoria said, when it's obviously difficult in the beginning to slowly make those small changes and change your mindset and move forward. But then something shifts inside of you when you kind of crossed over that bridge a little bit. And Victoria and I have been talking about this a lot because I'm doing this crazy 75-day hard challenge. And I was at the Super Bowl party a few weeks ago, and there were certain foods there and I couldn't eat them. And the one thing that I've told people, especially with the head hunger and things like that, I've been very fortunate because I wasn't once post-surgery who sat and thought about food. Like I wasn't thinking, oh my God, I really wish I had pie right now. But I'm a very visual person. So if I go somewhere and I see it, now all of a sudden that's all I'm thinking about. Like you see that pie from across the room, I want to have that pie today. Like that is, I am like literally obsessing over it. But I'm not sitting at home thinking about the pie. For me, it's out of sight, out of mind. So being at the Super Bowl and you're seeing the nachos and the cheese and the dips, and the weenies and like all of these things. And I have to stick to this like, strict regimen and stuff like that. And when you see it, there's the part of you like, oh, I really want to have that right now.
Girl cookies.
Or
Was it
cookies. Oh,
Girl
they had
Guide
cookies, and there was little cupcakes, I think,
cookies?
that day. Oh my God.
But isn't it funny? It's those types of foods that stimulate that center in your brain.
Yeah, it's crazy. So my
it's
husband,
not like, wow, look at that grilled chicken. It looks awesome. It's those addictive foods. They're stimulating.
I'm
just
not gonna,
to your eyes.
I'm not salivating over a grilled chicken breast, like not happening. Like I will salivate over a cheesecake, like 100%. But
yeah. And when you see them, you become more impulsive and are more likely to make a decision.
And that the struggle's a little bit more. And so my husband knows I'm doing this challenge. He's not doing it with me, but he's very supportive. And it's Girl Scout cookie season. And I opened up the pantry, and hiding in the corner were these peanut butter Girl Scout cookies. And I told him, I said, I opened up.
Come on.
Oh, Eric's on right now. Grilled chicken rules. He eats grilled chicken every single day. The only thing that I wasn't upset by the Girl Scout cookies, it was the one that I didn't like. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But then I found out Mr. Husband has been hiding cookies in the freezer in special Ziploc bags, hiding them. And he happened to turn around one day, not realizing I was there. And he turns around with his mouth like a deer in headlights.
Hey, those girls hustled me.
Yeah, he said those little girls hustled me. But the whole point of this story is there was something so empowering about I can literally eat this cookie right now.
Yeah.
I can do it. It's not going to kill me to have one or two cookies, but it was making the conscious decision is I found this activity to focus my energy on and focus my attention. I'm doing this challenge, I'm doing my workout and all these things that I'm consciously choosing that I am stronger than this cookie. I can have it one day, maybe when the challenge is over. I told Eric to hide some boxes in the house when this challenge is over. I might want one or two. But in the beginning, yes, it is terrifying. It is hard to break those habits. But like I said, when you kind of cross over that threshold into the other side and it's so empowering. And like, it's so weird to be empowered over a Girl Scout cookie or a treat or something like that. But it just shows how powerful your mind really is.
I'm more powerful than the Girl Scouts. I'm more powerful than you.
Yes. The Girl Scout cookies can't tear me down.
Yeah, exactly.
Those little things are those big, the victories.
Yeah, of course.
The successes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a big accomplishment, and to be able to have that choice. And also people, whenever you make a choice, just at least know what the consequence is going to be. So it's sort of like, okay, maybe I am going to choose to have a cookie today, and this is how I might feel afterwards, and this is what's going to happen. Okay, you know what? I'm going to choose to have it, and I'll deal with it afterwards. Or you choose not to. But whatever choice you make, you just have to be accountable for whatever the outcome is going to be.
Yes.
But it's good. It's good when you know it's a conscious choice.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. And I've been trying to encourage people, like, we're not perfect. You're going to have moments where you're going to cheat and you're going to feel weak and you're going to eat, those things and stuff.
Move on.
Yeah, move on. Own that decision. I made the decision to eat that Girl Scout cookie or to have that piece of pizza. I'm obsessed with the Girl Scout cookies right now. Now I can't stop thinking about it. But like I said, we're human. So if you falter in it, this doesn't mean that you have failed in life and have to go down the slippery slope into oblivion. No, it was a momentary decision. Did you enjoy it? Good. Enjoy the moment. But no, this is not an everyday thing. You enjoyed it for what it was, as a momentary treat to yourself. Then you get back on track to where you were. And if you want to make your goal down the road, I'm going to do these certain things. I'm going to eat certain foods for all these weeks. But then on one day, I want to have a couple bites of it. I mean, treat yourself. It's okay. Once you get to the point where you can know how to control it.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? To control it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I ask people to really recognize their own limitations. There are some people that are more easily can do that. Say, I'm going to have one cookie, or I'm going to have one bite of this and push the rest away. I'm going to feel satisfied. And then there are people that know I'm not there yet, or I know I'm that type of a person where once I indulge in a little bit, I'm going to want more of it. And I don't want to go down that slippery slope.
Yeah.
So therefore I just don't have it.
Yeah.
Or have
You
a
have to
list
know
of things that
yourself.
I just don't have. I just don't
Yeah.
go near. I don't know. I just don't do it. Always have done, because I
Yeah.
know there's certain things that I would want more of. So I'll just
Yeah.
start the routine again. So I just don't do it ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Can
So
I talk?
Oh
Do you
yeah,
have
go
a
ahead.
question?
Okay, darling.
No,
No,
go
I
ahead.
wanted to throw in a little thing about our
Please.
brain chemical, our feel good chemicals.
Yes.
So this kind of relates to emotional eating and addiction. So we have these chemicals in our bodies, in our brains. We have dopamine, we have oxytocin, serotonin, and our endorphins. So sometimes in people, they can just naturally be a little bit low, or maybe they're not doing enough things to boost them. Or there's some people whose bodies just aren't using them efficiently enough, so they're not getting the benefit from them. So
Right.
some of these things can be enhanced sort of falsely by food.
Mm.
Food might give you a boost of this, a boost of that, but then again, there's that crash. So
Yeah.
I always refer to, I have this list of what's going to, a healthy things that are going to help enhance each of those chemicals. So
Yes.
just real quick, and this is something I posted the other day. So this is something where if anybody looks at my Instagram, I post things like this. So if you want to increase your dopamine, that's the reward chemical, things like celebrating small successes, doing self-care, doing exercise, listening to music. If you want to increase your oxytocin, that's things like enjoying a good relationship, hugging somebody, being with your pets,
Right.
the touch, that's going to increase that. Serotonin, which is the mood stabilizer, things like meditating, yoga, breathing, getting out in the sunshine. And then the endorphins, which are the painkillers, that's laughing, dancing, exercise, things like that. So we know that these things are actually going to boost those feel good chemicals in your body. So that's a way to do it instead of trying with food.
Food.
Wow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I tell you what, I've had all this week, like little achievements. Like on Monday, I went swimming. The previous Monday when I went swimming, I could only do a couple of bits and pieces. Sorry, only a couple of like swimming and sort of little sort of like that. But this time when I went, I thought, right, just do the length. So I did a length, came back, and I thought, you know what, I could probably do that again. I'm going to try, because last week I nearly drowned. But I didn't. I went and did it and came back. So I then did 2 lengths. I then was swimming around. So anyway, it goes on. I did all these lengths and it was absolutely fantastic. So that was one bonus on Monday. Got an interview, passed the second interview. So I've now got a third one next week. So that's all really exciting. But the biggest thing, I've spoken to my doctor and he said I can drive again. Now I can do all my exercises. I can go to this new dance class that's going to happen. I'm going to do the swimming in the morning between 7 and 9. So I'll go like for an hour in the morning. There's all these things now that has opened up everything that I can do now. So it's really
And I think
exciting.
most people would say when you have those good things happening, which those things you're creating those things, food becomes less important. That stuff is taking up,
it's true.
it's stirring up those good chemicals. It's taking up your time. It's taking up
Yeah.
the thoughts in your head. So there's less room for food.
Food. It's true. So I've not had too much problem this week with food. In fact, I've not had any problem with this week with food.
Right.
Because I've just been so busy with it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's been good.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So take it. So
Roll on
enjoy those things.
Yeah. Can't wait. I went driving today, actually.
Did you really?
I was like, driving. And I signed up to the gym.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Victoria and I can video from the gym one day.
Yeah, that'd be so funny.
That'd be
There's
hilarious.
an episode.
No, my son said absolutely no way. If I do TikTok or if I do anything in the gym, then that's it. He disowns me. It's not the done thing.
Yeah, if I was to bust out the camera and try to do a TikTok while I was at the gym, Eric would probably walk away and be like, "I don't know this lady."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So I have one last question. Like, I don't think we're gonna be able to get to all of it today because we're almost running out of time, which I'm so bummed. But the big topic that we talked about last week was having to do with body dysmorphia, both pre-op and post-op. We discussed last week how we have this body dysmorphia when we're at our biggest. We have it like when we have it at our smallest and whatnot. And Victoria and I were trying to just come up with some suggestions and solutions that we thought might want to, help to kind of break the cycle and stuff. But is there any tips or tricks or ideas that you can maybe help somebody or give somebody who's dealing with body dysmorphia because they're losing the weight so quickly and either they can't see it or feel it or.
Yeah. Well, I think what you see when you look in the mirror isn't just what you see with your eyes. What you see in the mirror is made up of messages you've gotten, things people have said throughout your lifetime, things you've thought about yourself throughout your lifetime. You see through that lens. So you're going to see yourself, a little distorted, I think to begin with, because it's not just what you see with your eyes. So going forward, when you're losing weight, again, you can see with your eyes, but you have to see with other things too. So it's looking at what were the goals? Why did you want to have this surgery? Are you being more active? Are you feeling more energy? And kind of see those things in yourself. And I think that is helpful. And then also we talked about just taking a compliment can even be helpful because a lot of people are not used to taking compliments. So if someone says, wow, you're looking good, just say, okay, thank you. And maybe believe that it's really true.
I didn't. I always used to go, oh yeah, but I've still got 6 stone to lose. Instead of just going, thank you.
Yeah.
We were talking about that last week, how you don't know how to handle compliments now. So you do like the self-sabotage, like, Sherry, you look great. Yeah, but look at these arms. Like, oh my God. Like you're like finding flaws because you're just uncomfortable to say thank you. That was nice to say.
Yeah, I am now though. I'm now going, because after that the show last week, I was like, no, I'm going to say thank you to everything now. So I've been doing that all this week. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Does it feel good when you do it?
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah, because it really is consciously now going, oh, well, thank you. And, genuinely as well, rather than sort of, it's just like you're shy of taking a compliment. That's all.
Yeah. And then I think pictures can be a tricky thing because there's some people that may not look like looking at pictures, but then there's some people that need to see it because they don't see you see yourself every single day. So sometimes people do like to look at their pictures from before, whether you've taken them or even if it's just on your license because you're not in any pictures. And then you look at the difference now, being able to see that big difference.
Yeah, I have to do that. And I have to take lots of pictures of myself now because I said to Sherry, I'm having a bit of dysmorphia now because I have got that weight to lose. So I'm saying, oh, I feel, and it's, and aren't I? I'm like, sorry, that's probably seems really.
Is that really?
So I am a bit, aren't I? A bit moany. And so now I'm taking so many pictures of myself now because I'm just like trying to make yourself feel good. You didn't look like that, 2 years ago. This is what you look like. So I'm trying to do that.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, it's working.
Slowly but surely. So we have a few minutes left. And Kelly, is there anything that you want to add or throw out there or
telephone number?
Yeah, well, sometimes people will ask me, another question I get is,
yes,
what's the key to success?
What is the key to success, Kelly? Are you going to tell us now?
Simple answer, right? No, well, I'll tell people is know when to use your resources. So, we know that losing weight is really exciting. And then people, when they get to the maintenance, can get a little boring, a little, how do you stay motivated? And then people can slowly regain weight. So it's keeping an eye on your patterns, making sure that you're continuing to go in the right direction, not sliding back to old habits. And when you do, know what to do. So is it as simple as just saying, okay, I need to talk to myself. I need to refocus and do it on your own. But if you can't do it on your own, know what to do. Utilize your support network. Utilize a therapist. Utilize a dietitian. Utilize a support group. Go back to your surgeon. Whatever it is, know what your resources are and know when to go to those resources when you need it.
That is such amazing advice. And I wish I had all those resources back then, but definitely whenever you're struggling, reach out to somebody.
Yeah. And don't be embarrassed about it. There are plenty of people that will say, I didn't want to come back because I gained this weight, but that's exactly why we want you to come back. That's why we want to see you. We want to see people who are doing great, but we also want to see the people who are struggling so we can help.
Yeah, exactly.
So Kelly, for anybody who's interested, who might want to reach out to you to be part of your support groups or the other groups that you're working on in the future, how does somebody get a hold of Miss Kelly Taylor?
The best way is to call or send a text. A lot of times I'm on my own telehealth calls, so I'm not answering all the time, and I'm only one person. I don't have an office staff. So leave a voicemail. I do return voicemails. I can also take text messages. That's an easy thing. Email's not great because things can get lost in the shuffle with all that junk mail. So phone, text is the best. And then I've got that flyer that I had sent that we could post somewhere that has just a little more information on the services and
I can put it on the website as well.
Yeah, and the flyer has your contact information on it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if somebody calls me with something that is not really something I can help with, I always do my best to find a referral or send someone in the right direction.
That's what I do. Yeah, if I don't know it, and I haven't experienced anything like it, then I send, try and get the proper advice and send them. So that's good. Yeah, great. So we just need the number.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? How are we going to do this? Are we going to do it now, or are we going to put it in the comments?
Is after the show, we will put on our bariatric page on Facebook. We will put the flyer that Kelly has.
Oh, good idea. Yeah.
People can reach out to her directly for the support groups because Kelly, you're in New Jersey, so you can't teletreat people unless they're in New Jersey, correct?
So it depends. So for the emotional eating groups, we either use insurance or a low fee self-pay. So insurance would have to be in state. If it's a self-pay, it doesn't matter. The support groups that I do, I started the pop-up support groups. They're going to be sort of random support groups, but they're going to be more focused on emotional aspects. Those are for free. I guess that's
okay. And we'll put that information on there. And is there anything else that you wanted to add before we go today?
No, I'm so great that we've made this connection, and it's just really cool because there are people from all over the place. Sometimes, like we say, sometimes you feel alone, and there's just such a network out there. And I'm glad that we've connected and been able to share stories and talk. And I feel like there's sometimes we could just talk forever about this stuff. And that I've got people, you guys have people. And we can all come together and talk about this stuff. So I'm really, thank you for having me. And I'm glad that I've been able to learn from you guys as well.
It's your time. So thank you very much.
No, we're so honored. I feel like you're giving us a little street cred right now by having like an actual professional on our show. But like seriously, we talked about this earlier. I do believe that everything happens for a reason. The journey that you had, the journey that I've had, the journey that Victoria's had from across the pond, across different states. I love the idea of being able to come together with like-minded people and just try to work together to kind of spread powerful hope and positivity and overcoming what you're going through right now. And you're not alone in what you're dealing with. Now we're here to help in any way. And that's why we're here.
And there's so many different ways to get help, which is great. So there are some people that might want to talk to a therapist. There are some people that might want to take medications. There's some people who just want to go to a support group and talk to people who are like them. So there's something different for everybody.
There is, no, it's good.
And I love it. Well, Kelly, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate it. And we're hoping
that in unison.
We did. And we're hoping we can scare you away and that maybe you would consider coming back in the future.
Of course. Well, we'll always be in touch. So absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
Oh yeah. You're not getting rid of me that quickly. That's not how this works.
No.
Once I'm in like that. There's no turning.
Well, I'm glad that you guys started this podcast. It's really cool, and I hope that you get more and more followers watching it. It's really great.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And like I said, you're a great team. I love it.
Thank you so much. And to all of you guys who are watching right now, if there's any questions that you want to ask Kelly directly or that you want to send us messages, if there's topics that you would love to have maybe Kelly come back for in a future episode and talk about things more specifically, send us a message. You can comment on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook on our group. We'll have a website down the road eventually. But we're here. So reach out to us, and we want to hear your thoughts, your comments, your questions.
And we'll tell you them.
And we'll get to every single one of them. And yeah, just thank you guys so much. And we will see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
See you next week.